So it is exciting to be here with all of you. We are a team from New York Public Radio. We're the largest public media station in New York City. We reach 2 million monthly uniques on Gothamist.com, our local news site. We reach more than 1 million people listening every month on WNYC FM. And we're here to sort of think about how we've been trying to experiment with AI to broaden the accessibility of our broadcast, because we spend a lot of time as a public radio station broadcasting live. That's where most of our consumption happens. And we really have a commitment as an organization to making sure that our audio is universally accessible. And one of the things that we know is that our live broadcast doesn't have a meaningful entry point right now for deaf or hard of hearing audiences. So we really want to think about, as we're looking forward to the future, how can we make our audio more accessible to those folks who can't hear, but also how we can make it more accessible to folks who might not be familiar with public media, because we know that we do a lot of production of long form content in a world that depends on short form for discovery. And so we're really trying to think about how we might be able to make public radio more accessible on those two dimensions. And so we decided to start by looking at AI, because we knew that looking to make audio accessible, manual transcription has a really high cost and takes a lot of time to turn around. It's something we use for some of our after show transcripts, but when you're looking at it in a live context, it's not a great solution. We know that we could also look at traditional closed captioning systems, but those have a high fixed cost and are pretty difficult to integrate with our web systems, where a lot of the listening that we're talking about is happening. And we were excited when we started to work on this project that we could sort of start to look at speech to text models that are relatively low cost. They can operate at scale, and they support an API-driven architecture that would tie into our experiences and would let us deliver user-facing benefits from this kind of transcription. And so what we decided to take on, what we tried to do, is we started by saying, how could we use natural language processing to create AI-powered closed captions for our live broadcast? And what you're seeing here is the back end of a transcription system that we built, which takes our audio stream and outputs sort of an ongoing sort of closed caption of what you're hearing. So what you're seeing right now is Brian Lehrer giving the call-in number for his show, which is why you see all those numbers flying out onto the screen. And once we had that text data, we decided that it would be important to start to present that to the user in a meaningful way. So we moved forward and went to, integrate that into the audio players across our site. So we have a proof of concept audio player that you can see on the site there, where sort of right along that sort of expanding player button, you can see how a user who is sort of hearing impaired can follow along with the broadcast, even as the person is talking. And we really like this prototype because it makes the case that this is a meaningful improvement, both for folks who can't hear, but also for folks who are just not in a space where they can listen. This is a really great tool if you're in a place where you don't have headphones and you want to follow along with what's being said. You can still read along. But really, to take this to the next step and to really play with what AI could do for us, we wanted to go a little bit further and think about not just how could we transcribe the audio, but how could we use it to make our broadcast more accessible to folks in a broader way. And so what we did is we stored those closed captions and wanted to summarize what was happening on the radio. So what you see here is we have a flyout button as part of that mini player that when you click on that button, it runs the most recent transcript through GPT and summarizes that audio to give sort of a quick 3-bullet summary of what's been talked about on the air so far. The user can still sort of scroll through and read back on what they might have missed, but it's a way for us to let users catch up and see what's been happening on the broadcast. And we're really particularly excited about that feature because it's, I think, the first foray into trying to blur the lines between on-demand listening and live listening. We know right now that there's a really high barrier to entry to live listening, and we want to do what we can to break that down, to make it easier for us to win new audiences. And we're excited to keep testing this feature to see how that's possible. And where we want to go from here, we're sort of looking forward to continuing to build on the foundation that we have here to expand the accessibility of our programming. We want to take the prototype that we built here and put it in front of some audiences to do some user testing, because we have our hypothesis about how this works, but we want to make sure that the proof of concept we built is really going to address their needs and speak to the challenges that they face. And we want to keep driving the conversations that we started internally as this. One of the great parts about this project was that it allowed us to really move the needle forward within our organization about the use of AI, and we learned a lot from that. And most important, I think we're excited to sort of continue building some partnerships across the public radio system and with other funders to try to scale this, because one of the things that we came to thinking about with this project is we really believe that public media is an essential laboratory for the sustainable future for local news. And ultimately, this project we see as being tied into the future of growing audience for local news and for public media in particular. And so we're really excited to keep building on that and thinking about how we can drive this forward. And I'm happy to take questions from the chat or from panelists.
Thank you so much, Sam. Give me just one moment to pull up the panel here. So just gonna put everyone in the spotlight quickly. And panel, I'll turn things over to you to start asking questions.
Should we just shout them out, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, thank you. That was a really cool presentation. I was really excited to see the summary feature, the recent transcript and the summary feature. I thought that was really cool, and I could see myself using that. As someone who's uninitiated, I'm kind of curious what the qualitative difference is between a closed captioning system and text-to-speech beyond the costs and the tech implementation. Does it actually produce a better result or anything like that?
I'm not sure that it produces a better result, but it does give us access to the live stream that is currently happening at this moment, rather than sending a transcript after the fact and then processing it and then sending it back.
Okay.
One of the other places that I think that we didn't play with, but I think could be a differentiator going forward, is that the text-to-speech models, a lot of them return the probability of being right. And so it's possible to experiment with, like, how do you surface that uncertainty to the user? That's not something we played with here, but as we look forward, I think there's an opportunity to kind of signal to folks when there might be a lot of noise, when we're unsure of the transcript, that could be a little bit better of a user experience than just kind of rendering something as inaudible or skipping over it completely.
So really well done, and I like the framing you had around the problem you were solving being two-part. Could you talk a little bit, can you clarify, is this just a prototype, or did you actually go live with this? And then I have a second question, but I just wanted to understand that piece. And the second question is, did you see any, like, how did you measure, if people did engage more with it, and any success metrics that you looked at with that?
It's just a prototype, so we didn't go live with it yet. But if we do go live with it, and hopefully we will definitely want to measure if people are engaging with it. We could see how many people are clicking on the closed caption toggle, or how many people are expanding to see the summary and the transcript. So we'll definitely be able to figure out if it's being useful for people or not.
And yeah, credit to Kim, who did pretty much all the tech work behind it. It's like you said, it's not actually live in front of users yet, but it's pretty close to being production ready. I think there's a pretty short gap that we need to close to make it user scale. So the way it works right now is pretty robust. It just needs to be have a deployment model set up.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to test it with different audiences at different times of day. And on our different streams. So the example we showed there is our WNYC FM stream, but we have several others that we could try with different audiences to see how they respond.
Thank you all so much for this presentation and all of your work on this. I think it's a really exciting project that you all are undertaking. And I love kind of the focus and ethos on communities that often are overlooked and that are hard to address with an audio space, given, folks who are hard of hearing or are deaf. I'm interested in, I have kind of two questions. The first, you talked a little bit about this kind of reliability or confidence scoring. How are you all doing? I guess, what is your kind of quality assurance interval in general with the AI? And does it kind of ebb and flow based on, the type of audio that you're working with? How did you all approach that kind of potential difficulty or opportunity?
Well, for the prototype, we didn't actually do that yet, but for every word that is spoken in the transcript, we have a probability of like how positive the AI is that that's correct. So we could have some sort of threshold that we put into the code that will include a word if it's above a certain threshold or below a certain threshold. So that's definitely something that would be easy to implement.
Got it. And I'm interested, I guess, in the how the AI was trained as well, and people with maybe different accents or different draws.
Mm-hmm.
How does it how is it impacted, or have you all been able to test that yet?
So we're using a service to transcribe the live stream, and it's provided by Assembly AI, and they support many different languages. So I'm pretty confident, and I've used them in the past, that having accents or draws or like speech mannerisms will come through. But the more people use their models, the better it's going to get. So it's only going to get better from here. But from what we've seen, it's doing a pretty good job.
And we're obviously we're sorry, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead, Josh.
I was just say, obviously we're targeting our own shows, which is mostly voiced by professional radio speakers. So they all enunciate very clearly and all that. So it's a little bit less stress on the AI to figure out. But we do call-ins. So we have call-ins from the public, and it would be I don't know if we've tested against that yet, but that would be definitely an interesting challenge.
And then I just had kind of one kind of side note. I'm wondering if, as you all put the thing through ChatGPT, the transcript, if there are opportunities to use that to see what moments may be most interesting to folks, and then package up shorter pieces of that content to share in other avenues. I don't know if that's in y'all's roadmap or how you all are thinking about that as well.
Yeah, so right now we are tried a few different prompts for GPT, and we kind of settled on summarizing the last 50 sentences into 3 bullet points and excluding mentions of donating to the radio station. But that's something we could iterate on and just keep working on and making it as useful as we can.
I think that's one of the places that I think we're most want to test most aggressively, because the transcription application I think is the easiest to QA, and I think the most constrained use of the AI. I think this is a place where the ability to like take a quote from someone and then represent it as a statement of fact is, I think there's a lot of potential risk there. And so I think we're sort of excited about it. I think we're excited about the idea of capturing sentience, the sort of key details to really drive people forward. But understanding exactly like what's the right way to use that tool, I don't think we fully cracked yet. I think that's sort of the place where we have the most iteration to do.